There's something about memories from childhood that feels shinier than they probably were. I'm 41 now, but sometimes I think back to that Halloween in 1994 like it was a movie I saw last week. The colors were brighter, the candy tasted better, the air smelled like a mix of cold metal and pumpkin guts. But the older I get, the more I realize something was wrong with that night. It was too perfect. And when I think about the ending, I'm convinced now that we saw something we weren't supposed to see. Something evil wearing a mask of nostalgia. I was 10 that year. My mom let me go, trick-or-treating with just my older brother, Ryan. He was 12 and cocky about it, shoved me out the door with my plastic pumpkin bucket and told me to keep up or I'd get left behind with the babies. I wore a cheap ninja costume from Kmart. Ryan was a vampire with plastic fangs that gave him a lisp. The night was perfect. Not just good, perfect. The sky was cloudless, dark as ink. The moon looked painted on, full and glowing orange. Every house on the block was lit with jack-o'-lanterns, flickering with real candles. Skeletons danced in windows, fog machines hissed from front porches, and everyone seemed to be in a good mood. It was the kind of Halloween you see on vintage postcards, and it wasn't just our block. No matter how far we wandered, the mood never changed. Kids were laughing, racing from door to door with pillowcases and buckets. Parents stood in groups at the end of driveways, sipping cider from thermoses. It felt like we'd stepped into some alternate 1950s Halloween special. But I remember this. The air was too cold for comfort. It had a bite to it, like it wanted under your skin. And there was this faint smell in the wind that I didn't recognize until years later. It was sulfur. At the time, I just thought maybe someone was burning leaves. The first weird thing happened on Willow Street. There was a house we didn't recognize. That was strange, because we'd lived in that town all our lives. It was sandwiched between the Mitchells and the Sorensens' places, a 2-story Victorian that looked ancient, with peeling paint and gnarled trees out front. The porch light was on. A jack-o'-lantern sat by the steps, its grin jagged and wild, like someone had carved it in a rush or in a fit. Ryan was eager. He pulled me along by the arm. I remember dragging my feet. My stomach felt sour all of a sudden. A woman answered the door. She was tall, wearing a long black dress, and her hair was gray, not old lady gray, but white, like frost. Her face was long and pale, but her smile was wide and too warm. I remember her eyes. They weren't right. They were a flat, dead gray, no reflection in them, no light. She gave us each a small wax-wrapped candy and said, "Happy Halloween, boys. The night is hungry." Then she tilted her head as if she were listening for something behind us. We backed off the porch without saying thanks. Ryan unwrapped his candy. I didn't. Something about it bothered me. It wasn't any brand I'd ever seen. The wax paper had no label, just a tiny symbol stamped in red, like a goat's head or some kind of twisted star. Ryan popped it in his mouth anyway and said it tasted like burnt sugar and meat. He spat it out a second later and said, "Ugh, it moved." I threw mine in a storm drain. That should have been the end of it. But as the night went on, little things started piling up. We saw a group of kids standing under a flickering street lamp, not saying anything, not moving. They all wore the same costume, burlap sacks over their heads with holes cut for eyes. When we passed them, Ryan waved and said, "Cool costumes." They didn't respond. Then one of them turned toward us and sniffed the air like a dog. Another one followed. We didn't wait around. Then there was the boy by the cemetery. He couldn't have been older than 6. He stood just beyond the wrought iron gate, wearing a cowboy costume. No parents around, no bucket, just standing there staring at the headstones. Ryan called out, "You okay, kid?" The boy didn't answer, just turned and walked through the gate bars. Not around them, through them, like he was smoke. I told Ryan we should head home. He laughed at me. "Come on," he said. "You're just scared because it's dark and spooky. That's the whole point." But something was wrong. I could feel it. The houses started to look the same, even though we were blocks from home. The same carved pumpkins, the same decorations in the same places. Even the people started to look off, too stiff, too smiley, like the whole town had been replaced by people pretending to be people. When we passed the same house for the 3rd time, a blue ranch with a scarecrow sitting in a rocking chair out front, I said something. Ryan frowned and said, "We haven't passed this one yet." But I was sure. The scarecrow had the same rip in its overalls, the same moth-eaten hat. I pointed it out. That's when the scarecrow stood up, like it had never moved before, like its joints were made of dry twigs snapping into place. It didn't chase us. It didn't say anything. It just stood and watched as we ran. I was crying by the time we found our house, but something wasn't right there either. The jack-o'-lantern on our porch wasn't ours. Ours had triangle eyes and a toothy smile. This one had round eyes, and its mouth was open in a scream. It looked like it had been carved in a panic. Ryan stopped at the bottom of the steps. The lights were on in the house, but the windows were dark. Not dark like no one was home. Dark like the glass was painted black. There was no noise, no sound of the TV, no mom in the kitchen. He looked at me and said, "That's not our house." He was right. We turned and walked back into the street. Every house looked the same now, identical. The same black windows, the same flickering pumpkins. The sky above us didn't have stars anymore, just swirling clouds, and a single red light in the center, pulsing like a heartbeat. And then, all the kids on the street stopped, every single one. They turned toward us in unison, silent, some in masks, some not, some with blank faces grinning too wide. And in that moment, I felt it. Something was watching all of this, not from above or below, but within, something old, something that wanted us to believe this was the best Halloween ever, because it fed on that belief, on the magic, on the fear, on us. Ryan grabbed my hand and whispered, "Close your eyes. Don't run, don't speak. Just keep your eyes shut." I did what he said. I don't know how long we stood there, surrounded by those frozen figures. Minutes? Hours? But then, the cold lifted. A breeze blew past us. I heard wind chimes, dogs barking, a car engine. When I opened my eyes, we were in front of our real house. Mom was on the porch, arms crossed, saying we were late, and she was about to come looking. Ryan and I never talked about it. Ever. He changed after that night. Got quiet. Started drawing weird things in his notebooks. Symbols, faces, spirals. He doesn't like Halloween anymore. Moved to Arizona. Doesn't answer my calls. Me? I still live in that same town. Every Halloween, I stay inside. I turn off the porch light. I don't give out candy, because I know that if I play along, if I smile and pretend that the night is just innocent fun, it might come back. And next time, I might not be able to close my eyes in time. It was one of those Halloweens where everything just felt off. The air had that bone-deep chill that got under your skin, and the rain wasn't coming down hard, just a steady, whispering drizzle that seemed like it would never stop. The kind of night where the wind groans through the cracks in your windows, and every shadow outside stretches a little too long. I was home alone, which wasn't unusual. My girlfriend had gone to visit her parents out of state, and I figured I'd stay behind to hand out candy and have a quiet night in. I lived in an older neighborhood, big trees, creaking porches, and houses that still had mail slots. The kind of place where Halloween actually felt like Halloween. Kids in damp costumes, soggy pillowcases full of candy, porch lights glowing behind carved pumpkins. I had the house decorated just enough. Orange lights strung along the porch, a plastic skeleton on the railing, a fog machine I'd turned on for a dramatic effect. The TV was on low behind me, tuned to some black and white horror movie marathon, while I nursed a beer and occasionally shuffled to the door when I heard footsteps or laughter outside. By 10 p.m., the crowds had mostly thinned out. The knocks had grown less frequent, and the kids were older, teenagers more interested in messing around than trick-or-treating. I was about to call it a night when I heard another knock. 3 hard knocks. Slow. Measured. I stood up from the couch and walked to the door, grabbing the bowl of leftover candy. I was expecting a couple of high schoolers looking to score what was left. Maybe a lazy attempt at a costume, maybe a hoodie and a cheap mask. But when I opened the door, I stopped cold. Standing there, just past the reach of the porch light, was a man, an adult man. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 4 inches, and wearing a tattered old costume that looked like it was from a 1970s slasher film. A threadbare flannel shirt, overalls, and a rubber Halloween mask pulled up to rest on his forehead. His face underneath was smeared with something dark and red, what I hoped was fake blood. His hands were gloved, and at one of them he was holding a full-size axe. Not a prop, not plastic. It gleamed in the wet porch light. I swallowed. "You out kinda late, man." He didn't answer, just tilted his head slightly. His eyes didn't meet mine. They were scanning behind me, peering into the house. His neck craned, as if he were trying to see how far back the rooms went. I instinctively stepped halfway in front of the doorframe, gripping the knob tighter. "You looking for someone?" I asked. Still nothing. He stared at me now, his eyes glassy, unfocused, yet sharp in a way I can't explain. He was reading me, measuring me. I tried to laugh it off. "Cool costume, dude. You scared the hell out of me." That was when he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was wide, unnatural, too many teeth. His lips trembled as if the expression wasn't used to being on his face. And then, in the smallest, calmest voice I've ever heard, he said, "You home alone tonight?" The words hit me like a punch in the gut. Everything in me screamed to slam the door shut, but I kept trying to play it cool. "Nope," I lied. "Wife's just upstairs. She'll be down in a minute." He tilted his head again. His eyes slid to the staircase visible just beyond the hallway. Then, slowly, painfully slowly, he nodded. "You have a nice house," he said. "Thanks." Listen, I'm all out of candy," I stammered, though the bowl was still half full. "You might want to try down the road. They're probably still handing some out." He didn't move. Rain was dripping off the bill of his mask onto the porch. The axe hung loosely at his side, but I saw his grip on the handle tighten. He stepped forward, just 1 foot, onto the threshold. That's when I slammed the door. I didn't say goodbye, didn't try to keep it polite. I just closed it hard and locked every deadbolt. Then I turned off the porch light and backed away, slowly, my heart hammering in my ears. He didn't knock again, but I stood at the peephole for 10 minutes, just watching. He was still there for the first 5, staring at the door, not moving. Then he turned and slowly walked down the steps into the night. I didn't sleep. I turned every light in the house on, locked every window, and sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in my lap and the TV on full blast. And that's when the news came on. It was around 1:15 a.m. The anchor's face was grave, her voice too calm, too practiced. Authorities in the area are warning residents to stay inside and not answer the door for any unknown visitors. A man, dressed in a blood-soaked costume and armed with an axe, is believed to be responsible for a series of brutal home invasions tonight in which several residents were murdered after answering the door. He is considered armed and extremely dangerous. Then they showed the photo, and I felt my whole body go cold. It was him. The same rubber mask pulled up, the same eyes, same flannel shirt, same look, that distant, crazy smile that didn't fit his face. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the remote. The news said he was still at large. I never saw him again, but that door? I replaced it the next day with steel. I haven't handed out candy since. And every Halloween, when the night gets dark and the wind howls through the branches, I sit in the back room with the lights off and a bat in my hands, waiting. Because I never answered the door that night. Not really. I opened it, and I think I let something in. I haven't told this story in over 20 years. Not to my wife, not to my therapist. Hell, not even to Jake, Matt, or Ryan, the guys who were with me that night. But lately, I've been dreaming about that house again. And every time I do, I wake up with the taste of copper in my mouth and the sound of a man's whisper echoing in my ear. Come on inside, boys. It was Halloween night, 2002. I was 13, old enough to feel like we were too cool for trick-or-treating, but still young enough to do it anyway, because free candy is free candy. Me, Jake, Matt, and Ryan were out in our neighborhood in Danvers, Massachusetts. It was cold that night, not just chilly, biting. The kind of cold that makes your breath come out in thick clouds and makes the cheap plastic of your Halloween costume feel like it's glued to your skin. We'd already hit the good houses, Mrs. Kessler's, full-size Snickers, the McDowell's, homemade caramel apples, which our parents told us not to eat, but we always did, and Mr. Farley's spooky yard with motion sensors and fog machines. Around 9:30, the streets started clearing out. Porch lights clicked off one by one. Parents called their kids home. The orange glow of Halloween night began to dim. And that's when Matt said it. Hey, what about that place on Fallow Hill? We all stopped walking. Nobody answered. Fallow Hill was a dead-end street just past the elementary school. Everyone knew the house there. It sat back off the road, surrounded by pine trees that always looked black, even in daylight. No lights, no decorations, no kids ever went up to it. It was the kind of place you'd dare someone to go to on a boring summer night, then run away laughing when they actually tried. But tonight, we were in that weird teenage headspace, brave from sugar, dumb from adrenaline. We made our way toward Fallow Hill, flashlights bouncing off the cracked sidewalk. The air felt wrong, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. And then we saw it. The house loomed like a silhouette, 3 stories, slanted roof, rotten shutters that moved when there was no wind, no jack-o'-lanterns, no porch light, just a faint greenish glow behind the curtains in one of the upstairs windows. "Are we seriously doing this?" Ryan whispered. Jake, always the bold one, strutted up the porch steps and knocked 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. We waited. Nothing. And then the door swung open just a few inches. No sound came from inside. No footsteps, no voice. Just a hallway that looked wrong somehow. Too dark, too narrow. The walls inside were lined with pictures, but we couldn't make out the faces. "I don't like this," Matt said. Jake leaned in, about to call out, when a man appeared in the doorway. I can still see him, tall, thin, bald. His skin was pale and blotchy like raw chicken. He wore an old brown cardigan, stained and too tight at the sleeves. His eyes were sunken, yellow, and his lips were dry and gray. But the worst part, the part that still haunts me, was his smile. It wasn't wide. It wasn't exaggerated. It was polite, like the kind your dentist gives you when he's about to tell you something awful. "Well, hello, boys," he said. His voice was smooth, too smooth, like he was trying to pass for human. "Aren't you a bit old to be out begging for candy?" We didn't answer. "You boys want something special?" he asked, voice curling at the edges. "I've got the good stuff inside. Imported. Belgian." He stepped back into the dark hallway and gestured into the house with a long, bony finger. "Come on in." I felt my knees lock. Every instinct screamed, "No." Ryan took a step back. Matt grabbed my sleeve. Jake, though, hesitated. He was always the daredevil, the show-off. I could see it in his eyes. He was going to do it. "Jake," I hissed, "don't." The man's smile never faded, but his eyes, they flicked toward me, just for a second. And when they did, his face seemed to shift, like the skin around his jawline drooped slightly, like it wasn't fully attached. I swear to God, I saw something move beneath it, something wriggling just beneath his neck, like fingers pressing from the inside of a costume. Jake backed off the porch. The man's eyes narrowed, and his head tilted slowly. "Well," he said, still smiling, "you boys be careful out there tonight. Lots of bad people walking around." He reached into the darkness beside the door and pulled out a candy bowl. Inside were 4 full-size candy bars, laid perfectly in a line. They weren't wrapped in foil. They were in clear plastic bags sealed with red twist ties. "Take one," he said. None of us moved. Then, slowly, Jake reached out, grabbed one, backed away. The man nodded, set the bowl on a small table inside, and without another word, shut the door. We didn't run. We didn't talk. We just turned and walked, fast, as far away as we could. When we hit the school parking lot, Jake threw the candy bar into a storm drain. "I'm not touching that shit," he said, voice shaking. No one argued. We didn't tell anyone what happened. We didn't have to. We all knew we'd seen something we weren't supposed to see. Something old and hungry, pretending to be a man. We made a silent pact to never talk about that night. We even avoided Fallow Hill, never mentioned the house again. But here's the thing. Last week, Ryan called me. I hadn't heard from him in years. His voice was shaking. He said he drove through Danvers for the first time in 2 decades, just passing through. Out of curiosity, he took a turn down Fallow Hill, but the house was gone. Not abandoned, gone. No foundation, no grass damage, just empty space like nothing had ever been there. He asked me if I remembered that Halloween night. I lied, said I didn't know what he was talking about, but I do, and now I see the man's face in my dreams, standing in the doorway, waiting, And sometimes, when I walk by my front door late at night, I swear I hear a knock. Knock, knock, knock. And a soft, polite voice. Come on inside, Danny. I've got the good stuff.